All right, let's just get right into it. I'm willing to bet that almost everything you think you know about dinosaurs, you learned from the movies. These giant, roaring, scaly monsters. But what if I told you that most of that is just plain wrong? Today, we are going to tear down those movie myths and rebuild our idea of what these incredible creatures were actually like based on, actual science. So let's kick things off with maybe the most famous dinosaur scene of all time. You know the one. Don't move and the T-Rex can't see you. Yeah, no, total fantasy. The truth is, T-Rex had some of the most powerful vision of any land animal ever. We're talking eyesight that was about 13 times sharper than yours. If you stood perfectly still in front of a T-Rex, you wouldn't be hiding. You'd just be a very, very easy lunch. All right, so first up, let's really dig into these persistent myths that Hollywood has basically burned into our brains for decades. Okay, let's talk about pterodactyls and their relatives, the pterosaurs. You see them in every single dinosaur movie, soaring through the prehistoric skies. But here's the catch. They are not dinosaurs. Not at all. They were amazing flying reptiles that lived at the same time. And sure, they were close cousins, but they're on a totally different branch of the evolutionary tree. It's a super common mistake, so don't feel bad, but nope, not dinosaurs. And what about that terrifying, ground-shaking roar? It's the signature sound of any movie monster. But from a scientific standpoint, we have almost no clue what any dinosaur actually sounded like. Those roars you hear are just pure sound design magic, cooked up in a studio. The one tiny, fascinating exception is a dinosaur called the Parasaurolophus. Scientists 3D printed its big, hollow head crest, blew air through it, and got this deep, trombone-like sound. But even that is still just a really, really cool, educated guess. So let's move on, because the myths aren't just about what the dinosaurs looked or sounded like, they're about the entire world they lived in. We are about to completely reset your whole sense of prehistoric time, their actual size, and what real extinction even looks like. This right here, this timeline, it kind of breaks your brain a little. We imagine all the famous dinosaurs living together, right? Stegosaurus, T-Rex, Triceratops, all in one big chaotic theme park. But just look at this. Stegosaurus was already a fossil, dead for about 84 million years before T-Rex ever showed up. Now get this, only 66 million years separate us from the T-Rex. So let me say that again. We are closer in time to the T-Rex than the T-Rex was to the Stegosaurus. Wild. We also think of dinosaurs as being universally massive. And yeah, a lot of them were. But our whole perspective is skewed by something called preservation bias. It's simple, really. Big, thick, heavy bones are just way more likely to survive for millions of years and become fossils. Tiny, delicate bones, they usually just turn to dust. That means there were probably countless species of small dinosaurs we'll never know about, like the Epidixopteryx here, which was only about a foot long. The asteroid that killed the dinosaurs was bad. I mean, world-endingly bad, no question. But was it the worst mass extinction in Earth's history? Oh, not even close. That terrifying title belongs to the Permian-Triassic extinction, an event so awful they nicknamed it the Great Dying. It happened about 252 million years ago, and it wiped out over 90% of all species on the planet. It came dangerously close to sterilizing the entire Earth. Okay, so we fixed our sense of time and scale. Now let's zoom in on the animals themselves. This section is all about what it was really like to be a dinosaur, from the way they looked to the way they stood. So just throw out that image of a big, gray, scaly lizard. The reality was so much more colorful and, well, fluffy. We now have concrete evidence of feathers, or at least some kind of fuzz or quills, on more than 50 different species of dinosaur. And even cooler, scientists can now analyze fossilized pigment cells. This tells us many dinosaurs had really complex color patterns, probably for camouflage or to show off for a mate. Here's another one of those old-school images that just won't go away. The dinosaur dragging its huge tail behind it like a piece of dead luggage. But the proof is literally in the mud. When we look at fossilized dinosaur footprints, we call them trackways, we almost never ever see a drag mark from a tail. And that's because they held their tails up high. They were active, dynamic tools used for balance, and for predators like Velociraptor, a stiff tail acted like a rudder, helping them make hairpin turns while chasing prey. Okay, I want you to pay attention to this next time you see a movie T-Rex. You'll almost always see them with their hands facing down, palms to the floor, like they're about to do a push-up. Some scientists call this the monster hands pose. The thing is, it's anatomically impossible. Their wrist bones just couldn't rotate that way.
Their palms actually faced inward, toward each other, like they were about to clap. It's a perfect posture for grabbing and holding on to things, not for looking like a movie monster. And while we're on the T-Rex, let's talk about those tiny little arms. They're the butt of every dinosaur joke, right? Well, the joke's on us. First of all, at about 3 feet long, they were about the same size as a full-grown man's arm. And they were ridiculously powerful. It's estimated that a T-Rex could bicep curl over 400 pounds with each arm. So yeah, they weren't for reaching the top shelf, but they were anything but useless.
And forget about them being slow, clumsy beasts. Dinosaurs were world-class athletes. Take this guy, the Carnotaurus. This predator weighed as much as a rhinoceros, and it could hit speeds of up to 35 miles per hour. To put that in perspective, that's way faster than Usain Bolt, the fastest human in history. They were terrifyingly fast.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because you would think Hollywood is the bad guy in all of this, right? Well, not always. Some of the most stubborn myths actually got their start in the scientific community itself, born from early mistakes, honest misunderstandings, and even some pretty fierce rivalries. This is the incredible redemption story of the oviraptor. When the very first fossil was discovered, it was lying on top of a nest of eggs. So, naturally, the scientists named it oviraptor, which literally means egg thief. For 75 years, this dinosaur was known as a villain. But then, we found more fossils, and they proved the oviraptor wasn't stealing the eggs. It was a caring parent, killed while protecting its very own nest. A complete 75-year-long misunderstanding.
And what about the Brontosaurus? The dinosaur that never really existed? Well, guess what? It did. It's a bit of a soap opera. Back in the 1800s, during the Bone Wars, a paleontologist named 2 very similar dinosaurs, Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus. Then, in 1903, science decided they were the same animal, and the name Apatosaurus stuck. So for over a century, Brontosaurus was gone. But then, in 2015, a huge new study proved it was different enough all along. So welcome back, Brontosaurus.
Okay, this one is a classic. The Stegosaurus had a brain the size of a walnut, so it needed a second brain in its butt to control its back legs. Right? Nope. That big cavity in its hips wasn't for a brain. It held something called a glycogen body. And what's really strange is that modern birds still have this organ today. It's not a brain. It's more like a biological battery pack, storing up energy for the nervous system. So we've busted myths about how they looked, how they lived, and even how science got them wrong. But for this last section, we're going to tackle the biggest, most fundamental myth of all, the idea that dinosaurs were just big, dumb, evolutionary failures that were doomed from the start. Evolutionary failures? Seriously? Look at this chart. Just look at the numbers. Dinosaurs dominated this planet for over 150 million years. Hominids, our earliest ancestors, have been around for just a few million years, and modern humans, Homo sapiens, for less than 1 million. Calling dinosaurs failures is just arrogant. They are, without a doubt, one of the most successful groups of animals in the entire history of Earth. And this brings us to the ultimate truth, the biggest mind-bender of all. Dinosaurs never completely went extinct. Only the non-avian dinosaurs, the ones that couldn't fly, were wiped out by that asteroid. One group of feathered, meat-eating dinosaurs, the theropods, they survived. And they evolved into the animals we see every single day. Birds are not just descended from dinosaurs, they are dinosaurs. A pigeon in the park, an eagle in the sky, they are living, breathing dinosaurs. So I'll leave you with this final thought. We have this tendency to see evolution as this ladder, climbing up and up, with us at the very top. And dinosaurs are just some failed rung way down below. But the evidence just doesn't support that. They ruled this planet for a length of time our brains can barely even process. We've managed less than 1 million years so far. So when you really look at the grand timescale of life on Earth, who's the real success story?